One, two, three. I'm running up the stairs of my childhood house, as excited as I've ever before, from the dinner table to my room, taking 2-3 steps at a time, because I am about to throw everything down on my floor and pack it up into cardboard boxes. My parents allowed me to renovate my room. Yep, I was a 17-year-old kid doing all their homework, studying, and all work at a 10-year-old's desk. But hey, it was over now. It felt like Christmas came early, but obviously it didn't, because renovations take way longer than expected. After weeks and weeks, if not months, of IKEA manuals, dirty stuff everywhere, lost bolts and screws, and tiresome nights, it was finally the day when my room was finished. I entered the room so proud and so happy, finishing a little bit of decoration, putting a plant there, a lamp here, and suddenly I noticed something that brings fear into my entire body. A little plastic strip is missing from my wardrobe, a strip that's supposed to only cover a gap between the door and the wardrobe itself, and I go into full panic mode. Where is it? Did I lose it? Did I throw it away already? So I run down to the garage and I go through every single cardboard box that was left. And thank goodness I find it. I run back up to the room, and as quickly as I possibly can, because I want to get this over with as soon as humanly possible, I stick that little plastic piece onto the door. But again, terror fills my body, because I stick it in a way that's pretty crooked. So I unstick it again and try to stick it back on, but unfortunately by this point the glue has faded off and there's nothing I can do. I lie down on the floor in absolute fear and sadness. I don't know what to do. Some ideas come to my mind. Maybe I could use some super glue, but for some reason this little plastic thing has taken all my attention. I am infuriated. I cannot deal with this. My perfectionist self is simply paralyzed. And at that moment, something hits me. Instead of being excited, instead of being happy that I am currently in the room of my dreams, that finally this whole process is over, I am completely focused on that tiny little plastic strip that isn't even terribly stuck to the door. It's just slightly crooked and falling off. I realize that this is the stupidest thing ever. That perfectionism is taking away the joy out of my life. In that moment in time, I promise myself I will do everything in my power to beat perfectionism to death. Now I'm sitting, probably 5-6 years later, in this car in the middle of nowhere, and I do believe that I kept that promise to myself. I'm still a recovering perfectionist. I haven't beat it to death just yet. It still lingers around from time to time, but most of the time it's gone. And trust me when I say it has been one of the greatest changes in my life. It's so liberating, so refreshing, and most importantly, it helps me take action and not overthink things. But how did I make that happen? How did I get rid of perfectionism from most areas of my life? Well, 2 simple strategies. First one, purposeful inaccuracy. Sorry about that. Especially if you're a creative, especially if you like to make things. Whenever you're going on another creative venture, make sure to commit a mistake purposefully in whatever you make. And make it big enough so that people will notice. That will make you uncomfortable and flinch and ache a little bit. Not big enough to ruin the entire work. Don't misinform people, obviously. This is just a practice. Something that will help you get used to the notion of imperfection. You see, when you're scared of swimming, for example, it makes sense to slightly dip your toes into the water and then maybe go a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper, because you just expose yourself to the fear. Perfectionism is nothing else as the fear of imperfection. So expose yourself to the imperfection to beat that fear. Now, strategy number 2 is the minimum viable product. And in case you're a creative, you make stuff, it could be the minimum viable video, minimum viable poem, minimum viable picture, minimum viable blog post, whatever. The minimum viable thing is basically how low can you lower the bar, how much of the process can you strip down, how little effort can you put in to convey your point, to spark a feeling, to get across what you want to get across, right? For me, it's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm sitting in this car and yapping to a camera. It's everything I need. No fancy editing, no exciting cinematography, no incredible lighting, just that. And especially in the moments when you're paralyzed by, the grandiosity of things, when you want to make something absolutely spectacular, this is when you go back to the minimum viable product, because it lowers the bar and gets you into the action. The most important thing with perfectionism is taking action, because action inspires action. And it's the most important thing to simply get the ball rolling. Now, there's one more thing that I like to do or remind myself of when encountering perfectionism, and that is the spotlight effect, and how essentially it's just not real. If you don't know, the spotlight effect is basically our perception that everyone around us is following our every move and judging every action that we make. And that is just completely false, because everyone around us, guess what? They're way too preoccupied with their own life to think about everything that we do, especially in the creative sphere. If you put out there something that is not perfect, even something that's bad, yeah, maybe someone will hate on it, maybe someone will give it a dislike, but at the end of the week, they will have long forgotten, and you will have made something and learned from that experience. And that is way more important than what other people think, not even to mention that they don't. They literally don't care, right? They're way too focused on their own stuff. So, if you want to beat perfectionism, purposeful inaccuracy, MVP, and maybe just realizing that people, they don't really mind if you make something that's not perfect. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here, I genuinely appreciate it so much. If you want more, you can check out my Patreon page. No pressure, of course. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little story thing at the beginning. And as always, I'll see you down the river. Ciao.